Hey guys, welcome back to Mondays at the Museum. I'm Carrie and I'm here at the Anna Bemis Palmer Museum in York, Nebraska. So, the display is now officially closed, which means you can get your unofficial tour version, which is filled with anecdotes and humorous notes that I learned. Not to be confused with the official tour, which will come out next week and is somehow shorter than this one. Okay, here we go. This is the Palmer case filled with Palmer things, aka stuff that belonged to Anna and her family, like her shoes, purses, shirts, dresses. Funny story about this purple one, actually. So, I actually took it down and I hated myself for it. This purple dress, complete with black wrap, is like my favorite thing on the entire display. And I don't do dresses. Actually, if you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be doing a fashion exhibit, I probably would have laughed in your face. So I ran out of space on the showroom floor, right? And I came up with this criteria that if I had to choose between two things, I would take down the one that I couldn't tell the story about. And this did not have any tags at all. So I took it down and I was mad. And I just had this continued nagging feeling. And then suddenly, completely by accident, I come across this photo. And here is Anna in the dress. No way that was an accident. I truly believe that Anna was like following me around and going, "You idiot, that's mine, put it back up." And that was the nagging feeling, because I didn't have a nagging feeling with anything else that came down. And then when that didn't work, she flipped the binder to the page itself and was like, "Here, I'll do it myself." I mean, I should have known since purple was her thing, but that's my favorite dress in the entire display. Okay, so moving on, we partnered with the high school and they loaned us some of their more fashionable items. You won't believe the amount of people who came in just to see the high school stuff. Easiest tour ever. Walk in, walk out. It was great. Now, one would assume, small town USA, that I would be overloaded with high school stuff in my collection. But the funny story is, out of everything, I own this band uniform and this hat and scarf. Everything else is on loan from a teacher from the high school, from a board member of mine, from people who now run the Historical Association. Oh, by the way, 2017 was an awesome year at sports. Look at this. State champs football, state champs basketball. We also partner with the university, and same thing, I'm really not drowning. The only things that I own are this baseball uniform and this blue letter jacket, which came halfway during the display. So all this stuff is on loan from the university. Cool thing about this 1954 cheerleader sweater, though, is we were able to find it in this picture in the yearbook. The majority of the attention in this display goes, though, to these set of robes in that photo there. Dale Larson was the longest tenured president in York University history, and actually there was this big fire and they shipped everybody off to Iowa, and he was the one that made this elusive 10-cent phone call from a payphone that brought everybody back. Moving on to what has become the main draw for this display, I'm calling it the Vows and Veils section. It is a giant loop, 1870s to 1950s. I wanted to make it a giant line, like all across this wall chronologically, but then older sister came here and was like, "That's stupid, make it a circle," and don't tell her, but she was right. Some highlights to our Vows and Veils section include this white dress. This is the oldest wedding dress that I could find in our collection. It is from 1879. Gilmore family was pretty prominent back in the day. The wedding took place in the first wood-framed house in all of York County. You'll also see a lot of different colors in the early days. I guess Queen Victoria, when she got married, she wore a white dress, and then after her, everybody wanted to wear a white dress. But in the beginning, you just kind of wore whatever your fanciest duds were that you had in your closet. And Sue McLean coined this phrase, "wed, bred, and dead." You wore a dress that you could be wed, bred, and dead into, which I told her I was stealing, and I definitely stole that. That's a great phrase. This section is actually what I've coined as the too skinny for size 2 mannequins corner. These mannequins, they're not like chunky girls or anything like that. They are size 2. But I guess, corsets plus married younger minus trans fat equals skinnier people. Just wait till you see the size of their shoes. So if I found accessories, I put them with them. So like here's a marriage certificate, here's some shoes, tights, garter. We've got photos being worked in. So like here's, you can see the top of the dress here in that photo. But the one that haunts my dream the most is probably the slice of wedding cake. Yes, this is real. So the back one is from 1923, And then the rest are from the 40th and 60th anniversaries. I don't know what they sprayed them with or if it was like air dried or dunked, but they're here and solid. And I lost a bet, so they're included in the display. Moving on. So you can see early dresses, late 1800s, early 1900s, are pretty long. And then when you get to the 1920s, aka this section right over here, you start to see a little bit more ankle. This is because it evolved into the flapper girl style. And then in the 1930s, you got to see a lot of belts like this one right here. Here's another 30s, great suit. And check out, so this actually came from the parents of my board member. There's even a telegram announcing the wedding there. Also, you see a lot more photos being worked in, which I put up if I was able to find them. Moving on to the 1940s, you can tell that these dresses are a lot more simple. And this is because everything was going towards the war efforts. So, no more corsets because no more metal. I also think it was because people were rushing to get married before your guy was shipped off. And speaking of being shipped off, we do have 4 military uniforms. That's World War II Navy. Here's World War II Army. And these are in our Vows and Veils section. Korean War. So that is Marine Corps. And that is Korean War Army. Check out this snazzy tie. Yes, he wore it to his wedding. See? Proof. And then you hit dresses from the 1950s. The rations are gone, so people were going all out. Look at how poofy these things are. The last dress in the lineup is this one from 1958, and she was a librarian, so I got to show it off. Also, completely out of order, we have this dress from the Playhouse, which has got the whole train and the awesome bustle underneath. And of course, the Spurlocks you saw in our last display with the coat and the tails and the petticoat. And there's even a picture of her in the dress. And then more too skinny for mannequin items. The one on the right, actually, the daughter has brought in almost her entire family to come and see it, which is just so neat. And then we've got this collection of fashionable photos. I don't actually know who most of these people are. Man, check out that updo. More fashionable photos. Yeah, totally candid, right? Hey, there's a guy we know. Fred Niblo. Now, if you don't know this guy, shame. Born in York, he went on to be a famous silent movie director. He did Ben-Hur, Three Musketeers, Blood and Sand. Unfortunately, when talking was introduced into movies, he kind of faded into obscurity. It wasn't really his niche. But speaking of Fred Niblo, this whole wall is filled with items from the 1800s, and this tan and red and this brown dress actually belonged to his mother, Annette Liedtke. So there are quite a few items from the 1800s, including that bustle over there. My favorite of which is going to be the dress cover, actually, over here. So this was actually what they called a duster jacket, and you wore it over your fancy garb when you were riding the horse and buggy so that it would keep it clean. But look at how slim her waist is, and that thing goes over the top of everything else. And of course, the wire and cloth bustle that comes with the butt pad. No, that's not the technical term. Then behind us, you have everything from the 1900s. Love that jacket on the edge there. Very 1980s Miami Vice. The black and white unit actually came from the Centennial in 1970. This is my favorite because it really reminds me of like Jackie Kennedy. Then in the corner, we got our collection of hats. That includes Shriner hats. And we've got Pioneer bonnet hats. And we've got bowler hats. The second from the right is a silk top hat belonging to the mayor we had in 1890. My boss, who's the director of Parks and Rec, has already talked to our mayor and said, we need like a tie or cufflinks or something. And city administrator made this crack. He wears a lot of zip-up polos. Let's get a zip-up polo. This is my favorite because it just reminds me of the Kentucky Derby, very feathers and everything like that. But a lot of really cool stuff in this one. Hat from London there, second to the left, comes with that leather hat box from 1850. And check out this collection of shoes. Look at how tiny their feet used to be. Like, seriously. Can you imagine shoving your toes into this and like chasing after a smile child? And we do have some kid ones. And I meant like kid leather, but also some kid ones. Check out these little tiny cowboy boots. Love it. Above them are a bunch of capes and shawls, which I do not touch because check out the amount of beads, and knowing my luck, I will touch just the wrong one and it will fall on the floor piece by piece like some sort of cartoon. Here are all of our purses. We've got straps, we've got drawstrings, we've got colored, we've got black, some have mirrors, some have pockets. Some have more. I don't know. I don't do purses. But here I was faking it so well. Here we have made it to the final phase of the exhibit, which means themes. Over here we have Prohibition, which I have delightfully entitled Dress to Distill. It was funny at the time. Anyway, we tried to make it look like a speakeasy, so check out the liquor bottles with the curtains and the lights. It's not perfect, but it was fun. These are fashion items from like 1920s to the 1930s. So think like flapper dresses, fur coats, pinstripe suits. York has a really weird prohibition history. It actually split the town in two. So long story short, there was a bar added to the north side of town, and the south side of town was so upset that they became York and North York. Eventually they reformed, got over it, and became York again. But if you look at the map in those late 20s, early 30s, you're going to see York and North York. The ultimate irony now, though, is that the one bar that we had for so many years, and I'm not counting Applebee's because it's Applebee's, but the one bar we had actually went out of business because they couldn't keep the staff. So we don't even have a bar today. All of that splitting the town in two, and 100 years later, not even worth it. And then the last section is filled with items from around the world. Here you'll find a flight attendant's coat, a cape from France, a tartan from Scotland, a robe from England, and of course Palmer here from World War I, aka husband to our founder. He was buddies with Teddy Roosevelt, and he actually basically got him the promotion that caused him to be a major in World War I. I blame all of our success on Teddy Roosevelt. And people always ask why I don't have the boots on the mannequin, but there's a giant pole sticking out the back of his leg to make him stand up, and I didn't want to rip the boots. Here we have shoes from Sweden and Japan. Can you tell which is which? And then finally, these two dresses belong to Marie Reimer, born in Russia but raised in Henderson, Nebraska. She bagged herself a Russian count. I don't know how that worked, if they had connections before she was in Nebraska or if it was arranged or what. But she had to be then presented to the German Kaiser in this dress. Handmade, right, in Berlin in 1912. Cost her $1,000. Inflation math puts that as $36,000, which is ridiculous. And then this one, she had to be presented to the Russian court, and this was pure silk and made in Paris. Great shape for a couple of dresses that are more than 100 years old. I can't imagine spending $36,000 on a dress that I would wear once and then shove in a closet, though. And there you have it. That was our A Century in Style exhibit. We're going to be closed now through the duration of August, and we'll reopen in September with a display on retro tech. There is a vote currently going online to name that display, so make sure to check that out. Thanks for the continued support.